In the underground sewer system, late at night, two young men are seen walking. One looks worried as they have been walking for over an hour, wondering if they will find the box. He suggests heading back, but the other, who is leading, insists that since they have come this far, they cannot turn back. He checks the map. Moments later, they arrive at a waterway and see a mass of corpses trapped by barriers in the underground channel. The lead guy moves closer to the bodies, and as he turns to speak to his colleague, one of the corpses behind him starts to stir. Meanwhile, in Shikabanechou City at Azamigaoka High School, chemistry teacher Katsuragi Zakuro is teaching Class 2C. He notices that one of the students, Tojo, doesn't look well. Concerned, he asks if Tojo is okay. Tojo replies that he's fine, although he doesn't look it. Mr. Katsuragi then jokes that if Tojo feels sick because he doesn't understand chemistry, he will hurry up with the answers. Shortly after, the class ends and the students leave. Student Yamanaka enters the room and walks toward the teacher, asking while pointing to the windows if Mr. Katsuragi knows what material they are made of. Mr. Katsuragi replies that he doesn't know. In this town there lies a black box, and originally there was only one town, but now part of it is inside the box. Yamanaka is disappointed that the teacher doesn't know, as he's worried that nobody seems to care about it. Mr. Katsuragi tells him that what lies within the box is hell itself, and that he is one of the people who lived there before. He explains that most people don't want to remember, so he asks Yamanaka to refrain from asking others about it, as it's too much for them to handle. Later in the staff room, Miss Kasano, the head of Class 2A and a language teacher, compliments Mr. Katsuragi on his project and offers him a cup of tea. She then asks if he has gotten used to his students, to which he jokingly replies that while he has some naughty brats, they seem willing to accept him. At that moment, PE teacher Mr. Tanamura barges in with a menacing look, scolding some students while holding a bat filled with nails. Mr. Katsuragi and Miss Kasano are startled by his appearance, as he looks quite similar to a demon slayer. Noticing Mr. Katsuragi, Mr. Tanamura shows him a live stream of two young men planning to infiltrate the sewer system. Mr. Katsuragi recognizes one of the young men as Tojo from his Class 2C, and the other as Minami from Mr. Tanamura's Class 2D. Mr. Tanamura explains that he received a tip from one of his students about the two boys entering a prohibited area, looking for haunted places to explore. He emphasizes that it is dangerous to go to such a place at night, let alone live stream it. Both teachers are worried about their students. Mr. Tanamura suggests they speak with the boys and asks Mr. Katsuragi to talk to Tojo after school. Later in Class 2C, Mr. Katsuragi addresses the students for the day and informs Tojo that he is needed in the staff room because Mr. Tanamura wants to see him. He apologizes for calling Tojo in, regardless of whether he feels sick. The other students, surprised, ask if Tojo has done something wrong, and one of them reveals that Tojo and Minami have been live streaming. At that moment, Tojo suddenly stands up, as if to say something to the teacher, but instead he bites the neck of the girl sitting in front of him. Chaos erupts in the classroom as all the students scramble to escape. In the staff room, the teachers are informed of the tragic news. Mr. Tanamura worries about Classes 2B and 2D, as some students from those classes hadn't escaped in time, resulting in bites and infections. Principal Kikuko Akaguchi urges him to stay calm, stating that she has already contacted the police and that a special unit is being dispatched, expected to arrive in 30 minutes. Despite the unfortunate circumstances, she instructs the teachers to abandon the infected students and tasks Mr. Tanamura with managing the students who have made it outside, following the manual. Mr. Tanamura disagrees, insisting that he will search for the students who didn't make it out. The principal questions his decision, reminding him of his aversion to dead bodies and informing him that Mr. Katsuragi has already started the search for the students. Surprised, Mr. Tanamura inquires about Miss Kasano, noting her absence. The principal, unsure of her whereabouts, wonders if she has escaped. Meanwhile, Miss Kasano is in the restroom, dealing with an upset stomach, an unfortunate situation given the timing. In Class 2C, Minami live streams the corpse of the girl bitten by Tojo. He is shocked that Tojo is responsible for the killings, but he is pleased by the growing number of viewers, feeling satisfied that he gained attention before his death. His vision begins to blur as he starts feeling unwell. At that moment, Mr. Katsuragi appears and smashes the recorder Minami is using with a nail-filled bat. He scolds Minami, reminding him that live streaming in school is prohibited. After checking the corridor and seeing that Tojo's corpse hasn't noticed them yet, Mr. Katsuragi tells Minami they need to escape. However, Minami reveals he can't, and shows his shoulder, which has already been bitten. He explains that they had been exploring the sewers, but the corpses blocked the way, and one of them bit both him and Tojo. As Minami begins to turn into a corpse, Mr. Katsuragi swiftly kills him with a heavy blow to the head, lamenting that Minami should have informed him about the infection sooner. Frustrated that valuable time was wasted coming to Minami's aid with only 30 minutes left until the police arrive, Mr. Katsuragi checks Minami's body. He notices that only Minami's left hand is unharmed, and looks around to ensure no other corpses are nearby. Meanwhile, a student corpse finds Miss Kasano, who is paralyzed with fear and unable to flee. Just as the corpse is about to bite her, Mr. Katsuragi intervenes, swiftly dealing with the corpse and rescuing Miss Kasano, who is immensely relieved and grateful for his timely arrival. The special unit eventually arrives and successfully deals with the corpses. Their leader informs the principal of the situation and mentions something unusual. One of the corpses had its arms and feet removed. Although this isn't a murder investigation, he felt it necessary to inform the principal. Later, Mr. Katsuragi returns home, visibly concerned that he is late, knowing his sibling, Komomo, will be hungry. He heads to a room where a young female corpse, chained to the wall, growls and attempts to call him Big Bro. Mr. Katsuragi empties the nylon bag he brought, revealing severed arms and legs, which he refers to as Komomo's favorite meal. Komomo ravenously devours the body parts as Mr. Katsuragi watches, gently urging her to eat slowly and not to choke. A little while later, Mr. Katsuragi is seen crying, saying that Komomo seems happy, and that makes him content too. After closing the door, he walks into the living room and gazes at a picture of them. He softly vows to bring her back to normal, no matter what, even if it means killing as many people as necessary to achieve that goal. Mr. Katsuragi, wearing a hood, walks along District 4 of Agamagaka on a mountain road. As he listens to an attack report through his earphones, which states it's urgent and requests the dispatch of the special unit. While continuing his walk, he comes across a car that has crashed into a building. The driver, already infected, is trying to bite the passengers when he suddenly notices Mr. Katsuragi, who swiftly strikes the infected with his axe. When the special unit arrives, they find that the undead has already been dealt with, and its feet are missing. The special unit leader wonders if this is the work of the Undead Reaper and suspects it might be a prank. However, Mr. Hagane, a young official in a suit, informs him it's not a prank. Surprised by Mr. Hagane's presence, the special unit leader listens as he speculates that the incident could be the work of a pretentious hero of justice or a peculiar murderer. Mr. Hagane expresses interest in the mysterious Undead Reaper, wondering if this person could be a friend. Meanwhile, the high school continues as usual, but Yamanaka can't shake the unease lingering in his mind. 3 days ago, his friend turned into a monster and devoured their classmates, yet everything seemed to proceed as if nothing happened. During attendance, Yamanaka notices that aside from the missing seats and desks of those involved, school activities are completely normal. Later, while hanging out with his friends, they notice his distant mood and jokingly ask if he's love-struck. Yamanaka, still troubled, asks them about Tojo and Sakamoto, who had been in their class. His friends, however, respond that they've never heard of them, questioning if he's hallucinating. Yamanaka is shocked by their responses, wondering if something strange is happening. After school, Yamanaka heads home and sees Mr. Hagane talking to his mother in an awkward position, telling her that if she shows any signs of turning into an undead, she should be sure to kill herself. After the unsettling conversation, Mr. Hagane leaves. Yamanaka asks his mother about him, and she replies that he's just from work, not her secret lover. Entering the living room, Yamanaka notices a bag of medicine and a pistol, which surprises him. His mother quickly picks up the gun, nervously explaining that it belongs to a client who must have forgotten it. Yamanaka, however, doesn't believe her, growing more confused. The next day at school, in the staff room, Miss Kasano urges Mr. Katsuragi to take a break. He refuses, citing the danger posed by the undead and mentioning one of his students who has joined the undead. Miss Kasano sympathizes, but Mr. Katsuragi coldly remarks that he's glad it's just the two. Miss Kasano reassures him not to think that way. Yamanaka then approaches Mr. Katsuragi, asking to speak privately, so they head to the top floor of the school, although Mr. Katsuragi would have preferred the staff room. Yamanaka tells him that the monster Tojo became known as the undead. Mr. Katsuragi solemnly asks where Yamanaka heard that. Yamanaka explains that everyone in the class is hiding from these abnormal occurrences, but he suspects Mr. Katsuragi knows more than the others. He wants to understand why Tojo became undead. Mr. Katsuragi explains that Tojo was infected by the bite of an undead while trying to enter the black box. Yamanaka is stunned by the revelation. Mr. Katsuragi continues, explaining that once infected, a person begins to kill and eat others, who then also become undead. The black box contains many quarantined individuals, including his former students and their families. Whether they remain human is unknown. Mr. Katsuragi asks Yamanaka if he genuinely wants to understand or if he's hiding like the others. Yamanaka then reveals that his mother has been talking to a strange man about the undead and received peculiar medicine from him, which worries him. Mr. Katsuragi's expression turns serious, and he immediately gives Yamanaka his contact information, instructing him to call if anything happens. He fears Yamanaka might become another Tojo. After school, Yamanaka heads home and calls out to his mother, but she doesn't respond. He assumes she's in the bathroom and tells her he needs to talk once she's done. She replies, okay, but in the restroom, his mother is attempting suicide, terrified and crying as she struggles with fear of death. Yamanaka goes to his room, recalling the gun he saw, and realizes it's real, not belonging to a writer as his mother claimed. He wonders why she lied. While resting on his bed, Yamanaka hears his mother call his name. Suddenly, the door bursts open, revealing his infected mother, now a two-headed woman. Shocked, Yamanaka remembers Mr. Katsuragi's contact information and calls him, explaining the situation. His mother, now crawling toward him, grabs his hand, ready to bite. Mr. Katsuragi bursts into the room, wielding a chainsaw, and cuts off one of the heads. He asks Yamanaka if he's okay and tells him to come with him since it's still dangerous. The undead mother struggles to stand, calling Yamanaka's name. Mr. Katsuragi instructs Yamanaka to close his eyes as he prepares to kill her. However, the remaining head, despite its eerie appearance, pleads with Yamanaka, asking if she's going to die. Emotional, Yamanaka believes his mother is still alive and hides behind him, saying she would never kill him, even in this form. Grateful for Mr. Katsuragi's help, Yamanaka is nonetheless bitten by his undead mother, and Mr. Katsuragi is forced to deal with both of them. Mr. Hagane arrives at Yamanaka's house with a special unit and notes that Yamanaka's mother developed the symptoms but couldn't bring herself to commit suicide, leading to her son's involvement in the tragedy. As he surveys the scene, a unit member informs him that they found the handgun, but the undead vaccine is missing. This makes Mr. Hagane recall the infamous Undead Reaper, as he notices both the mother and son's body parts are missing. He wonders if the same person is behind this incident and finds himself reluctantly admiring someone even worse than him. Two brothers are seen arguing, as one disagrees about staying in a haunted house, claiming their uncle got infected, which terrifies him. His brother tries to calm him down, but the fear remains. Meanwhile, the special forces are heavily guarding the city, determined not to let anyone or anything leave. The scared brother suggests they escape the city by crossing the river, but his brother disagrees, believing it's impossible. As they argue, the chicken man approaches them and asks the brother with a wounded neck if the injury is from the undead. Instead of answering, the brother angrily accuses the chicken man of eavesdropping and then introduces themselves as members of the Nayuta Gumi. The chicken man, uninterested in their affiliations, presses again about the origin of the wound, focusing only on whether it came from the undead. The brothers regret ever engaging with the chicken man, while before the wounded brother can respond, the chicken man kills him, explaining that anyone infected by the undead must be eliminated. Meanwhile, Katsuragi has been experimenting with anesthesia on Komomo, observing its effects on her body, and discovers evidence that human cells remain. Using the undead cells from Komomo as a base, he analyzes the undead vaccine he retrieved from Yamanaka's mother. This allows him to uncover that the people distributing the vaccine have been spreading the infection intentionally. While searching the internet, Katsuragi listens to a report of undead spotting in Azamigaoka 4th District. He immediately goes there. Upon arriving, Katsuragi notices that the undead people have died and suspects the chicken man might be behind their deaths. The next morning in school, Katsuragi spots his neighbor, the student, weeping. Miss Kasano is comforting her, and Tanimura explains to the confused Katsuragi that the student's neighbor fell victim to the undead. Tanimura also warns Katsuragi to be cautious of the chicken man. Even though he helped kill the infected, the chaos began after he appeared in their city. Afterward, the school principal is seen talking to Hagane about her cooperation with the box, sharing vital information. Katsuragi overhears them and is surprised to hear them discussing the box. The principal notices Katsuragi and calls out his name, which allows Hagane to learn who he is. They are introduced before Hagane leaves. Katsuragi then asks the principal if she has told Hagane about her infected sister. The principal admits she hasn't, saying she only provided other important information. Katsuragi later realizes that the box is hunting for the person killing the undead, which makes it difficult for him to secure food for Komomo. As Katsuragi passes by a house, he recalls that it belongs to the leader of the Nayuta Gumi. Upon entering, he is struck by the strange situation. Initially thinking it's an accident, he soon realizes that monsters are inside the house. Confused, he wonders if the house belongs to the monsters. Suddenly, Katsuragi sees the chicken man killing the undead. As the chicken man notices Katsuragi, he immediately attacks, but Katsuragi defends himself with a sword he picked. Katsuragi reveals himself, saying he is human. The chicken man recognizes Katsuragi's voice and also reveals himself. Katsuragi is surprised to see Mr. Tanamura under the mask. Tanamura tells Katsuragi to understand him, as the undead had killed someone important to him. Tanamura asks Katsuragi to join him in eradicating the undead, but Katsuragi refuses because being with Chicken Man tends to stand out. However, he promises to keep the events of that day a secret. Unfortunately, at that moment, the box forces arrive and capture Tanamura, informing Hagane that they'd caught the undead killer, referring to the Chicken Man. Hagane tells Tanamura that because he's the one who killed Test Subject 54, which was very valuable as it was capable of creating antibodies, so for causing them trouble he'll replace Subject 54. Tanamura begs Hagane for mercy, but Hagane ignores his pleas, instead demanding that Tanamura provide valuable data to aid their work. The monsters continue killing people, and cries for help echo as terrified citizens beg for rescue. The squad arrives just in time, securing the outer perimeter and focusing on blockading the entrances to the second and fourth buildings. Meanwhile, the third squad is tasked with guiding the refugees to safety. A man trapped in a collapsed building cries out for help, unable to move his legs. He pleads for the squad to open the door, but they hesitate, knowing that even if the man jumps, he won't escape. The man, desperate to survive, has no other option. In the 4th district of Azamigoka, at Azami Hills No. 5, all the undead outside have been disposed of, and the remaining buildings have been sealed off. Katsuragi is aware of how brutal the Special Forces' disposal methods are, understanding that it will take time. Hagane, on the radio, thanks the Special Force for their service and asks them to notify him if any of the evacuated humans could be used for experimentation. Meanwhile, a man named Arumi arrives. Arumi is concerned, questioning why Hagane wants to implant undead cells into those who have survived. Hagane explains that those who have faced death might have a greater chance of developing antibodies against the undead cells, believing in the strength of human survival. After all, he is a demon. Arumi is unsettled by Hagane's strange reasoning, but remains quiet. Hagane then asks why the headquarters sent Arumi, to which Arumi replies that it's because of important calls regarding the disposal of District 4 in Azamigoka. The number of undead and victims in that area has increased rapidly in a short time. Soon after, the principal announces the closure of the school in District 4, stating that she will assign new duties to the teachers once the students are calmed. Evacuation dates for those living in District 4 will be provided later. Katsuragi informs his class that the Special Forces will be sending the students home and urges them to stay calm and follow instructions. It marks the second time Katsuragi has been taken away from his job, but he has no choice. He bids his students farewell, hoping to see them again alive. Katsuragi, now used to these disruptions, remembers that his main home is in District 4. He has rented a hut outside the district to store weapons, but now sees it as a place to hide Komomo's body. Before the area is completely abandoned, he must get Komomo out of there. To his shock, Katsuragi sees the special fire unit in the city and realizes he has little time left. He covers himself to avoid being recognized and hurries to rescue Komomo. Meanwhile, District 4 of Azamigoka is scheduled for complete lockdown, and residents are reminded to evacuate their homes that day. As Katsuragi listens to the evacuation orders, he spots Mr. Tanamura shouting that the undead must be killed. Katsuragi is surprised to see Tanamura in District 4, but he soon notices that Tanamura is behaving more erratically than usual, causing Katsuragi to grow concerned. Chaos erupts at the entrance to District 4, with residents pleading with the Special Forces for information on how long they must wait. They ask for help with their ID numbers, but the special forces cannot respond immediately as they still need to confirm the number of survivors and undead. Katsuragi, confused by the pandemonium, silently observes the scene. Amidst the turmoil, Katsuragi is relieved that the anesthesia has been properly applied to Komomo's limbs, though she grows restless with the waiting. As he worries about how to get out, his phone rings. It's Kasano, calling to check on him and Tanamura. She's nearby and wants to meet up, but Katsuragi tells her not to bother. Despite his attempts to dissuade her, she insists, eager to see him again. As the crowd presses against the entrance, someone suddenly turns undead. The front line is alerted, but the information doesn't reach those at the back, who keep pushing forward. In a shocking twist, Tanamura has become undead, leaving Katsuragi stunned while still on the phone. Meanwhile, Hagane realizes that the Chicken Man possesses a large number of undead cells, making him a powerful and mysterious figure. Though he kills the undead, he cannot kill the cells within himself, and Hagane wonders if there's something inside the people the Chicken Man kills that he's after. One of Hagane's colleagues reminds him of his duty to rescue the evacuees, cautioning him not to let his curiosity get him killed. Hagane, eager to contribute more to the box, assures the man he will be careful. Back in the chaos, Katsuragi is nearly killed by an undead, but a stranger saves him. Grateful, Katsuragi notices the man's gun lying on the floor and considers taking it for protection. He then remembers Komomo and the undead Tanamura, and when he sees Tanamura in that strange state, he wonders if Tanamura knows he's still alive. But Tanamura, preoccupied, doesn't seem to realize it. Suddenly, Katsuragi hears Komomo crying out for help as Tanamura, now undead, moves toward her. Katsuragi pleads with Tanamura to stop, but the undead cannot hear him. Katsuragi, remembering how much Tanamura hated the undead, is amazed at the irony. With no choice, Katsuragi decides to kill Tanamura before he harms Komomo. As Tanamura hesitates, Katsuragi seizes the moment and strikes. Later, Kasano arrives and apologizes to Arumi for keeping him waiting. Arumi had feared she was dead, but was relieved to see her alive. She suggests they go somewhere else to talk, mentioning a good spot where Arumi can view the new box in District 4. On that day, the black box in Katsuragi's town multiplies into 2. Katsuragi deeply apologizes to Komomo, knowing she will suffer again. But as her older brother, he promises to restore her humanity and make her happy once more.